Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session of Milk Minutes. As you may know, our Milk Minutes occurs every fourth Monday of the month at 6 p.m. on our Facebook page. Before I dive into this month's topic, I want to give a brief overview about what Healthy Start Center for Urban Breastfeeding is. Our Healthy Start Center for Urban Breastfeeding is Healthy Start initiative to increase breastfeeding rates among Black families in Allegheny County, whereas our Milk Minutes is our community education series where we discuss a variety of different topics with all the community members. You don't have to be enrolled in our program to join. This month, we have two powerful, great Black women to join us with this month's topic. And this month's topic is breastfeeding while Black. I am Kemarra Moses, your program manager for the CUB, and I'm gonna let the ladies introduce themselves. And Renae, you can go first.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Renae Green. I am an international board certified lactation consultant. I work currently at McGee as a lactation consultant, and I also work for the CUB as a lactation consultant as well. I am about 5 years in now with breastfeeding, which is really, actually almost 6. In March, it will be 6 years. So I'm 6 years in with supporting breastfeeding families, and I'm excited to be here.
Yay. Hi, everybody. My name is Iyanna Bridges. I am a birth keeper. I have my birth organization, the Birthing Hut. And I am also a peer champion with Pittsburgh Black Breastfeeding Circle. So I do help with lactation support. And that's much about me.
That is great. Nice meeting you ladies. So tell me a little bit what made you get into breastfeeding, because that's something that you have to be passionate about. So what geared you to be like, okay, this is what I want to do professionally?
I'll go first. So as a Black breastfeeding mom, I realized that the support that I was looking for, no one looked like me. So I was like, okay, there's a void here that I can fill by becoming a lactation consultant. I met Ngozi shortly after, which was great. And she helped me kind of find my way around. But it was generally just, I didn't have adequate support. I didn't have people who related to me and can talk to me in a way that I will understand it. And I wondered how other people who look like me would feel if they received the same level of care. So that's pretty much why I started helping moms breastfeed.
And that's pretty much the same for me. My reasons mirror Renae's, along with me being a birth worker, being a doula. That is definitely a major part and component of supporting mothers throughout their pregnancy, as well as helping them postpartum to make sure that they are able to provide nutrients and do it comfortably and educated on how they can breastfeed and have that support. Seeing that, within hospitals, they aren't equipped with the information and knowledge and the know-how of how to support Black mothers going through the transition of giving birth and then to start breastfeeding. I made sure that I was able to fill that gap that I think needed to be filled.
I think those are important topics that are points that you guys brought up, because similar to me, being that I'm pregnant with my first baby, I seen that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I seen that when I was completing my nursing and in clinical for a little while, it wasn't something that seemed to be the focus, should I say. I would say I'll go in there, I'll see the mothers giving birth, particularly Black mothers, and automatically they was giving them formula. They really didn't have the conversation with them of, do you want to breastfeed? Do you know how? And even if they did choose to breastfeed, it was kind of like they're shoving their boob in the baby's mouth. It wasn't really a teaching moment. It was just like, okay, let's get this done, because you're probably not going to be doing it for a while anyway. So I think that y'all guys brought us some good points with that. When you had your child, Renae, Iyanna, do you have children?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So did you feel
But thank
supported?
you for asking. You make me feel like I look young. So
You do. You know what they say though.
Laughing because she had her baby, one of her babies on live on Facebook Live.
Did you? How was that
yes,
experience?
I did. Oh my God. That was with my fourth daughter. The experience was great. I had a traumatic pregnancy. I didn't have the conversations I needed to have. I didn't have the support system to help me get through my pregnancy. So I decided I was going to have my birth unassisted at home. And I decided to go live on Facebook
Oh
as I
wow.
had my daughter.
That's something that I would have loved to watch.
I think it's still up.
It
Okay, I'm
should
gonna have to
still
check it
be up
out.
there, and it's on YouTube.
I need
Renae
that
said
name
yes.
so I can check it out on YouTube. I need to check it out on YouTube, definitely. So with that being said, both of you ladies, did you feel supported in the hospital? Did you guys start breastfeeding in the hospital or did you wait until you got home?
I'll answer it first. Well, with my first daughter, I had her in 2010. And that was a really crazy experience because she was an emergency C-section. And I did not have the support that I needed in a hospital being introduced to breastfeeding. But I knew I was going to breastfeed. That wasn't an option for me. My child wasn't getting a pacifier. She wasn't getting introduced to a bottle. That was something I was going to do. But because she was an emergency C-section, it was harder for me to make my ideas a reality because it was a whole lot more difficult with this, this incision and this pain that I'm going through, and the little medication that they did provide at such a young age. I was 19. I still kept going through and I breastfed, but I had to go through hurdles on my own.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding was painful for me for the first month because she wasn't latching correctly. My nipples was cracking because, the suction wasn't properly done. So these were things that I had to experience on my own and I had to bear through just to enjoy the experience of breastfeeding. So with my first, after all of that trauma she made me go through, I continued breastfeeding her up until she was almost 3. And then I breastfed every additional child after that. So all 4 of my girls got breastfed, but it was never anything that was a priority for providers at the hospitals. It was nothing that was never initiated. And if it was, because my breasts are so big, they made it seem like such a clumsy act on how they would attach my daughters to my breasts. So like I stated, you can tell when people aren't comfortable around you in order to show you or educate you on something. So I was like, okay, when I help mothers along their journey, I'm going to need to make sure that I'm equipped so I can help them, because it's not just a mush the face to the breast situation. You have to figure out how to hold them, how to properly position yourself. There's things that you need to know how to do. And the only people that can show you that is those that are comfortable with touching you, being within that proximity of you while you don't have clothing on. So yeah, that was my experience with breastfeeding and nurses.
That's really good that you kept going. You advocated for yourself. You was determined to make it happen. That's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, my story does not fully mirror yours. But I was 25. So I mean, I was still young, but I wasn't like very young, because 19 and 25 are 2 different mental.
Yes.
And I think I knew I wanted to breastfeed, but I didn't at the same time. Like, I knew that it was something that I was supposed to do, and it was something my body was capable of doing. I knew very early that I would be a single mother. And so, I voiced a lot of things in my pregnancy about my plans, such as breastfeeding, such as being a single mom. And I was more concerned after the fact, with all the information that I learned working at the local birth center, that like I wasn't provided with the resources to help me while pregnant. So I remember they were like, it was like mandatory for you to watch like a video of someone getting a C-section, which kind of like, I get phantom surgery feeling. So like anytime I see a surgery, I start feeling like it's happening to me.
Oh
There
gosh.
yeah, it's crazy. But that same like push when I said I wanted to breastfeed, that, oh, you can get, you can take a free breastfeeding class, or, oh, since you're going to be a single mom, you know, you may benefit from having a doula, which were free based on my insurance back then. And, you know, luckily my grandmothers, both of them, and my aunt was there to like be my doulas and help me out when I gave birth. And when I gave birth, I remember, you know, because like I said, in pregnancy, I think I read in a magazine that about breastfeeding, and I was like, yeah, that sounds right. I'm gonna do that. No knowledge, no information, no understanding of what it's supposed to be like, how it's supposed to be. And I like when I first had given birth, my baby latched on immediately. He fed for about 40 minutes, and I was like, oh, this is easy. And then we went to, yeah, then we went to the postpartum floor from labor and delivery, and he just completely shut down. Like he didn't open his mouth. He was very just like tight-lipped, wouldn't even take, like I'm expressing milk into, you know, a spoon. I'm trying to spoon feed him. He's not doing anything. And I did have someone come and help me. And I remember it wasn't a situation like yours, Iyanna, where she kind of was scared to like get in and, you know, help me and show me. It was like, I felt like she gave me a little bit of support, and within like 10 minutes, she was back out the room and telling me to give my baby a bottle. And it was the nurse who was there that was in the room when she was in there. When she left, she was like, don't worry about it. Keep trying. Your baby's going to be able to do this. And so, you know, I was just like, okay, you know, I needed to hear that extra push. And I remember going home and just figuring out how to do it. And I was just determined. I was like, look, you're not getting anything else. So this is what you're going to have to do. And you're going to have to figure out how to do it. Like, I had a home health nurse that came to follow up with me about 2 days after I discharged. And she provided me with a lot more education and information, told me about like using nipple ointment cream because my nipples was cracked and peeling and like they was rough, y'all. So, you know, that was helpful. I also did attempt to get some further lactation, just like education and consulting from my pediatrician's lactation consultant. And I remember that she kind of discouraged me in a way because, like I said, I had no clue what I was supposed to be doing. And when I went in there, she just exactly was like, you know, basically telling me that I'm doing well, but telling me in a negative manner by saying like, I'm here to help moms who are struggling. And I'm like, you know, so I think that kind of like definitely pushed me to see that like I can only imagine, you know, me, someone who's, you know, left the city, been around a little bit. I can only imagine what other people and like probably not knowing how to advocate for themselves, how to speak up, you know, like, you know, not standing firm in like something they want to try. And maybe not even having a determination, I don't know. But I can only imagine what other people would experience if they received the same level of like consultations that I did. So
yeah, I think that's
go on a breastfeed my baby for 11 months, which was great. So
yeah, that's really good. And like you said, it can be very intimidating or overwhelming if you don't know what to do, or even if you don't even have the knowledge of how it's supposed to be, and you're relying on the care provider, the doctors, the nurse, the lactation counselor to provide you that information. And they're just like, I mean, just give them formula, or they're fumbling over your boobs, or, you know what I mean? They're making you feel inadequate. So that's really good that y'all both kept going. So that makes me go to my next question of, what false truth did you guys believe before actually starting your own breastfeeding journey? Like, did you think breastfeeding was supposed to hurt, or did you think it was going to be like easy latch, or what was some of the things that you learned that was like, oh, I thought this was true, but it's not?
I'll say I didn't really have any baseline information to go off of. Like, I didn't even do research about breastfeeding when I decided I was going to do it. And so like, I guess I really didn't, I also haven't never witnessed anybody breastfeeding before. So for me, I just didn't have any understanding to say that I had some belief of what it was supposed to be like. You know, it was kind of pretty much, I was trial by fire. Like I just went with it, seeing how to go about it, and just kept pivoting as I went. So yeah, I didn't really have a lot of baseline information to create any type of like narrative for what to expect.
Yeah.
For me, it was a little different. I didn't do a lot of research on breastfeeding, but I just knew it was something I wanted to do. My mother, my grandmother, they breastfed. So to me, I had this assumption that it was supposed to be easy. You know, I always hear people say, "Oh, you know, your breasts are made to breastfeed. Your body automatically makes milk." So I'm like, all right, if I'm supposed to be able to do it, then it should just pop her face right there, and it's supposed to work. So I had the expectation of it being one and done and quick, and and when it started hurting and she wasn't latching right, and I didn't know why her face was turned away, I was like, this is not as easy as people made it seem. This is something that really does have to be taught. Your body naturally makes milk. You are built to breastfeed. However, it's not something that's just instinctual. It's natural, but you need to be taught how to properly do it. These are things, that's why you need the education. That's why you need lactation consultants. That's why you need the support around you to make sure that you know what you're doing. And if you don't feel bad about not knowing what to do, because it doesn't just come to you just because you delivered a baby. And
Good
that was a
point.
big misconception I had.
That's a good point, because you do like, oh, these are what my boobs are made for. This is, the milk is in there, baby's hair. Come on, let's go. But you have to be taught. You have to know how to correctly latch the baby, because people think breastfeeding is painful, and it's not supposed to be at all. And
I just wanted to jump back into that. So I always tell people, like when I see them, one of the things that I try to like drive home is that baby learns differently than how you would learn something today, right? So baby doesn't comprehend what you say, they cannot read what you write, and they cannot watch YouTube videos to figure out how to do something. But everything you do with a baby, you have to do in real time, and you have to be consistent and persistent with them so that they can learn, right? Because children do as you do and not as you say. Everybody knows that. And if you don't, now you do. But what you do with the child over time, they're going to start to pick up on those behaviors, and they're going to start to say, okay, when I'm at the breast, let me just keep sucking, because otherwise my mom or my dad or, my parents are going to keep bothering me. And so that's one of the things that like now as a lactation consultant, I'm aware of. And, as I went through my own experience, I had to learn, but like Iyanna said, this is not something that just like innately happens at all. Like it's something where there's a learning curve. It requires a lot of upfront action and upfront like teaching and correction to like set boundaries about what is expected when breastfeeding.
definitely. And Renae, being that you was the first in your family to breastfeed, do you feel like you set the tone for that? Like now you see some of your other family members breastfeeding, or do you feel like they was giving you the side eye, like you're really doing this?
So I definitely got side eyes. The summer that I had my child, my family was like very close knit. We were like with each other every day. And I got a lot of, when are you going to stop breastfeeding this baby? Oh, your baby's so attached to you. Your baby doesn't want anyone else. And so I definitely had to like put my foot down a little bit. I'm the oldest of all the grandkids. So like there's that also, because like I'm okay with speaking up and saying, no, this is what I'm doing. Whereas someone else who might fall a little bit different in the family lineage might feel a little bit like, pressured because there's older people telling them what to do. So I really didn't fall victim to like some of the things that people said at me about what I was doing. And I remember me breastfeeding. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and I remember it kind of made her remember like how she wanted to breastfeed, but her husband didn't allow her to breastfeed because the breasts were for him. So it kind of brought up whole lot of like stuff with like people who wanted to try and wasn't able to. So that was interesting. It definitely took some time, and I did kind of set a little bit of a tone. I definitely tried to influence a lot of my cousins. You know, my sister tried breastfeeding. A few of my sisters tried breastfeeding. My cousins tried breastfeeding. I got to help them out. The ones that did, the ones that didn't, they'll be like, oh no, I'm absolutely not doing it. So, I mean, I think like, as far as like family wise, the breastfeeding rate has definitely increased from what it was before. But not everybody is sold on it. So
yeah. Because that like makes me think about like my friends. I'm like the last of the Mohegans out of my friends who don't have children. So now that I'm having mine, they're like, you're going to breastfeed? Are you sure? Like, you think you're going to be doing that? How long are you trying to do that for? That's going to be like a month or so. You're going to get tired of him just being attached to you. You're going to be so tired of doing it every 2 hours or so. Even one of my friends sent me a video of like this lady's nipple falling off. And like, I'm like, are you trying to scare me out of it? Or what's the issue? I'm not sure.
yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that, you know, because your friends may have had children before, it sounds like you can probably send them resources back, you know, send them statistics,
Yes.
promote breastfeeding, that talk about breastfeeding, that educates them. But I wouldn't be very concerned, but I would be concerned about like what these people would say around you, because when breastfeeding gets hard, those voices that are closest to you can influence you greatly. And so I would just be making sure like, hey, you're my friend, I love you, I respect what you did with your baby, but for me, this is the type of support I'm looking for to help me make sure that I can reach my goals. Because I mean, it's one thing that like, I don't want to project, you know, if I didn't breastfeed, I don't want to project what I'm doing onto someone else, because they might need my support differently. And you got to be unbiased as my friend. And sometimes you got to check your friends about it. Hey,
I'm
not
telling you, I'm like, stay in your lane, girl. Like, I mean, this is what I'm deciding to do now. Like, don't try to scare me out of it.
Yeah.
But you know what? Unfortunately, in our community, it is a very normalized practice to trauma bond. And we automatically share traumatic experiences with people around them. And it doesn't necessarily be with malicious or ill intent. It just be because this is the experience that I went through, and this is how I was raised, or how I know to warn you, how I know to give advice, instead of giving it from a different perspective or being supportive when you're doing something that they didn't do, and seeing how they can help you succeed in an area where they weren't successful. Because we do the same thing when it comes to giving birth. Oh, you gonna do it naturally? No drugs? You're not getting a C-section? You're not getting an epidural? Oh, child, let me tell you what happened to me. And they have stories for days. And it's not, and it's just because that's how we relate to one another, by scaring the shit out of each other. I don't know, make it make sense, but that's what happens.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So, like, what type of stigma would you say that you overcame as being a Black breastfeeding mom? What did you have to overcome that you felt like was some obstacles or stigmas?
I'll go first. I feel like I overcame two. The first one was I breastfed out and openly in the public. I never did the blanket thing. And I attempted to with my first, but she never stayed under the blanket. And my family, they was like, oh, modest, I got a little bit of bigger breasts than some people. And, it's just like, don't nobody want to see all that. And at first I'll keep trying. And then I was like, you know what? I can't keep pressuring my child to be uncomfortable. And then she would stop breastfeeding due to other people being uncomfortable around her. Mm-hmm. So I just, off with the blanket, and I let my child eat openly and free. And I continued that practice with all four of them because it was their preference. I wasn't hot. I was comfortable. There was no shame in me breastfeeding my child in public. I didn't feel as though it was indecent or nudity. So why should you have a problem with what I'm doing as it's supposedly so natural and normal, right? So I definitely made it an intention of mine to normalize just allowing my breasts to be out. And I'm a little rebel like that. When I find that I do things that irritate people, I intentionally continue to do it. So that's why I did that. And the second stigma I felt like I intentionally, purposely did to annoy people was I continued to breastfeed my children until they were almost 3. All 4 of my girls breastfed, and I allowed them to wean on their own. I never forced my children off of my breast. So they self-weaned. They was walking, eating food, getting cups, and still asking for breast. So, and it's like, Iyanna, that's not normal, but it is. And the more I kept doing it, I allowed that to be conversation, and that eventually led to education. So I do allow myself to be the, the body on the front line sometimes, but it's all necessary.
I think that's very beautiful. Like just the idea of breastfeeding long, that was something I wasn't able to do. I was prescribed the antibiotic. And it really wasn't something that I would have to stop breastfeeding for, but the people who were in charge of my care told me I had to stop. So I just cold turkey just took my son off the breast. And, he transitioned well, but sometimes like that's something like I missed out on, like, with like extended breastfeeding, because it's something I would have did. And not to mention, 2 days after I stopped breastfeeding my baby, he got pneumonia.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my gosh. And it was February. So it was early winter, still. And just know what I know now. I would not recommend weaning your baby in the middle of winter because they sick. I really wouldn't say I had any, I do have a stigma, but I more so have kind of like a regret in a way. So in 2014, I had my son, and breastfeeding was not as trendy as it is now. And I felt like I was on an island of my own. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I know that there was the Pittsburgh Black Breastfeeding Circle, but it just started in 2014. So, in Pittsburgh, it can take a long time for things to like really move out and people to hear about things because everything's so word of mouth. I didn't know about the Pittsburgh Black Breastfeeding Circle until I was already done breastfeeding my baby. He was like a year and a half at that point when I met Ngazi. So like, I just felt like so alone because I didn't really have a lot of people around me who understood breastfeeding. So I also was on the public bus. And I was not out here having my boobs and my breasts all out because y'all know how these people be on the bus. So there was no way I was inviting that conversation. There would be people next to me, and I would just have my little nursing cover over me, and my son was okay with it. But I also didn't take up pictures while I was feeding my baby. Like I have one picture of my son trying to latch onto my knee, okay, because he thought that was cool. But I have no pictures of like him actually breastfeeding, and so sometimes I'm like, dang, like I really missed out on that and like promoting that. And I didn't really see that. Cause it wasn't like I hid from breastfeeding in front of people. I didn't like walk away or anything. But I just don't have like nothing like intimate recorded. I will say the stigma that I overcame is just being Black and breastfeeding. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That is a stigma in itself because people think that because you're Black, you won't breastfeed or you won't breastfeed for a long time. And I really had no intention of stopping when I had to stop. You know what I mean? And I was very thankful that I can make it to almost a year where I didn't have to introduce any formula. We went straight to, rice milk and almond milk and oat milk and stuff like that with my pediatrician's approval, everybody. So, for me, I think the stigma of just like being someone who was Black, intending to breastfeed, mm-hmm. As a single mother, limited, resources and support, and then breastfeeding long term.
Definitely. That's excellent. Excellent. So Leslie, before we wrap it up, what are some of the statistics that compared to Black breastfeeding moms compared to any other race? Do you guys know any statistics that you guys want to share?
I I can share. So speaking of the CUB, Miss Program Manager, when the CUB started, that was like back in 2018. The statistics back then was Black women were initiating in Pennsylvania at 73% breastfeeding rates, and white women were at 81% breastfeeding rates. And so, Asian and Pacific Islanders are already pretty much always towards the top of the 100%, but I think they were around 7%. And, even though it seems high to say that, Black women are breastfeeding to start at 73%, the details of how long we breastfeed vary and decrease significantly, especially within our population. Now, before I can get into that, now, as far as breastfeeding in 2020, the latest data is that Black women are now attempting to breastfeed at about 76% of all births in Pennsylvania. White women are at 83%, Hispanic women are at 81%, and Asian and Pacific Islanders are at 92%. So we did see somewhat of an increase. We as Black women are still not at the Healthy People 2020 goals, which was 89%.
Yeah.
But where some of the data can really be influenced, and there is not a lot of data like easily accessible, especially when it comes to like our county in particular, or anything besides like how many moms are attempting to breastfeed right at birth. But what happens with us as Black women is that oftentimes we're in positions and we work in jobs where we're not afforded extended paid leave, which means that we're more likely to go back to work sooner than some of our counterparts. Oftentimes as a Black woman, you may not have like the family support, or, like you're talking about your friends, your partner may not be educated around breastfeeding to support you. And sometimes you can be easily influenced to stop breastfeeding sooner. And then, there's a lot of other factors such as stressors, such as, like just in general, mainly is going back to work sooner than, you're able to like bond with baby, and you got to introduce a bottle really soon and whatnot. And so, when we look at like trying to breastfeed exclusively at 3 months and at 6 months, these numbers are dwindling down so low when it comes to Black families, because we're sometimes not afforded the luxury and the privilege of even taking the time to be with our own children for an extended period of time and paid. So, it is great to see, some increase in how people are even trying to breastfeed. I definitely would recommend people getting educating the people around them, and then also building support systems to help them, seeking out lactation support to help them so that they can continue on breastfeeding, because just because you're going back to work doesn't mean you have to stop. It just means that you have to change your approach in how you breastfeed. So I would love to see more data that is congruent to, how the duration of breastfeeding, whether it's exclusive, whether they're, supplementing, especially within our county, and by race, so that we can see like long-term how that is increasing for Black families in Allegheny County. But I think it's great that we are at a 76% right now.
That's amazing. And nationally, our numbers are still very low. It's not geared into Allegheny or Pennsylvania, but for the World Health Organization, we are at 44.7%. Okay, compared to, and that's just a duration of 6 months, compared to our counterparts that are 62% of white women, okay, and 57% of overall women, overall all race. So we're still very, very low in that statistic range. So we have to step it up. And I think having conversations like this, having the latch line available to everybody, having the CUB and the resources and Healthy Start and Black Breastfeeding Circle, those are very good things to have to get the ball rolling, to feel a sense of community, to pull us together so we can keep this ball rolling. So I think it's great that we had this conversation. You guys were very insightful and helpful. gave great examples. And Iyanna, I still want to see that video on YouTube that you did for Lab. Do you guys want to add anything else before we wrap it up?
Okay.
Well, make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, tell a friend and tell a friend. Come join us. We are more than happy to help you. And we look forward to seeing you next month with a new topic. Thank you for joining in.
Bye.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.